I already know what you're thinking. You're like, dude, you've lost your freaking mind. What did you pick up? Well, let me tell you, this thing is something special. And it's deals like this that go by that if you don't know what you're looking for, you can easily think this thing's just some $500 junk pile of Jeep that's heading for the scrapyard. But if you start looking really close, you start to notice things. Here's your first hint, full floating rear axle. Second hint, the steering linkage mounted to the top of the axle there. Obvious hint, 9-slot grill. Now the grills are interchangeable, but the axles tell us, you know, there's something more. Then you kind of start to look. No Willys on the side of the hood. Come in here, you got the spoke wheel. And there's the money shot. Military Jeep in the glove box. We have a 1945 Willys Jeep Model MB. That's right, World War II, baby. You vaguely look into here, there's a tag for the frame that says MB on it. We go to lift the hood. This is what you need to look out for under an engine bay. So number one way to tell when you're looking at a classified ad to see if it's a correct engine, here's your first clue. So this water pump housing, now this one's kind of crusty and it's hard to see, and someone put this plate, I'm assuming, is a way of sealing the water leaking problem. But this plate is only flat from here to here, whereas on a CJ2A, it's flat from here all the way over. So that's your obvious sign. Next stop, and you look over here. On a CJ2A, it's just a little tiny circle right here. On an MB or GPW, this is all the way across because they stamped the serial numbers here in the World War II Jeeps, here in civilian. Now there's some early CJ2As that might have some similarities between a World War II Jeep and civilian, but we've already looked at the number here. Might be hard to see, but it says MB dash and then a number. Next thing I want to look for in the head right here, there's a number, casting number right there, and there's also a casting number in the engine. All these point to a World War II Jeep. Now here's another hint for you guys. On a World War II Jeep, now if it had the original headlight buckets, they would swing up, and when they come back down, they need a mount. Well, that's what this little piece is on the fender right here. So a civilian Jeep does not have that, and then the World War II Jeeps also had these little reinforcement brackets here. Same thing right here, spot for the headlight. Now World War II Jeep, these are not the correct hinges, obviously. But a good way to tell if it's got the original hinges is the CJ2A. The hinge is round right here on the bottom. And a World War II Jeep, on the inside, it's going to be a flat ledge right there. So it's all the little details you got to really start looking for. So let's go ahead and let's shut the hood here. Let's talk about what the heck this thing is. Back before these Jeeps were super, you know, collectible, they were kind of everywhere. And it was just military surplus at the time. It's kind of like Humvees right now. No one really cares if you kind of hack one up to do something neat with it, but in 40 years the story might be different. So this guy's probably a farmer. You know, it came out of the UP of Michigan, and he probably wanted a plow rig or something, you know, nice to keep warm in the winter. And I gotta say, the body modifications he did is actually pretty darn good. I mean, if you really start looking at the time this guy took to do everything, this was obviously some sort of hardtop that came aftermarket that would have originally just went straight down the back. Now I don't know what this is off of because it's definitely an automotive made piece. If you flip it up, you know, it's too nice to be something that's homemade. You can see in here the toolbox lids on each side. That's obviously World War II. Now you can see some of the floor in there is still surviving. But I mean, whoever did this took the time, they molded everything, it fits really nice. I mean, you almost couldn't ask for a better setup. They did have like a tractor sign right there. And on the back here, most of the panels on these Jeeps, like a farm Jeep, they would cut out these panels and put tailgates in them because they're just not usable like this for a utility use. But it still remains on this one. We've got the bumperettes here, got the pintle hook right there. You crawl underneath the Jeep, you'll notice a machine gun mount right there. Why is it sitting so high? Well, that's a pretty easy thing to figure out. The guy I bought it from decided he wanted to lift the thing, so he took the leaf springs off and put them on top of the axle. Now here's the problem when doing this. So on the bottom of the axle, you see it's got this little perch right here. That is supposed to keep it centered on the leaf spring and keep it from wobbling around. Well, when he put them on top, he didn't weld the perch on the top end. So these U-bolts, the axle can start slipping front to back. So when you hit the throttle, the whole axle can twist and bind up the U-joint. Moving to the interior, we've got our glove box right here, which actually does open a bit. That's sweet. Easy way to tell if it's a military Jeep, it's got this flat floor right in here. So T84 transmission is not as tall, and you can have that flat piece right there. Now a T90 transmission, you've got the little hump right here in the floor. Makes it super noticeable. Even the gauges are different on a World War II Jeep. So right here you can see you've got your odometer, and then you also have a trip meter. So there's two different numbers in here, which is pretty neat. I've personally not tried the plow setup, but the previous owner said he did use it for years like that, so that's kind of neat. So I mean, we got a lot of original history in here. Even the windshield frame, it's got the original brackets right here, and it looks like the original windshield's still under here. It's just that someone, you know, molded it into the cowl. I'm assuming a lot of fiberglass and Bondo, because I mean, it's totally smooth in here. But what you kind of got, if you're looking for a World War II Jeep to restore, from afar, this thing, it looks pretty rough, obviously, but it's got all the value of the World War II Jeep in it. You've got the original chassis, the axles, the engine, the transmission. I think these fenders are probably, you know, restorable. You can buy the little patch that goes into here. You can probably find a bent up grill to cut out this piece and re-weld this back into place. The hood is definitely usable. Same thing, this fender's usable as well. So you pretty much got the front half of the Jeep and the chat. Personally, I think there's enough of the Jeep here, you could probably make something work without having to buy a whole new tub. Here's another way to spot the differences in the Jeep. The Army Jeeps had a bigger gas tank, and they sat really low, which off-road guys don't like it because that's the first thing that's gonna get hit out on a rock. Now, one thing's kind of neat, you could definitely tell an older guy probably did this, you know, way back in the day, 70s or so. It's got kind of like that plywood setup that'd be found like a Model A or Model T to go across for reinforcement. So it's more of an old school way of thinking on how to do things. So fortunately or unfortunately, Jeeps like this kind of get lost to time. You know, we're at the point where back in the day, GIs would take Jeeps and airplanes and just kind of mix them together and see what kind of car they could build. And there's tons of pictures online. Even during the war, they're making race cars out of them and like luxury cars, all that kind of stuff. And it's a neat piece of heritage in that sense. But you're also at the point now where the Jeep is so old that it kind of needs restored back to its former glory. And that's why we're seeing less and less of World War II Jeeps and, you know, even CJ2As in general that look like this anymore. I just thought it'd be kind of neat to document one of these because, you know, maybe even in my lifetime, there won't be, you know, flat fender Jeeps that even look like this anymore. Let's see if she can't fire up. Look at that oil pressure, that's what I'm talking about. It's even got a working charging system. Check that out. I need to turn up the idle a little bit, but I mean, the thing's idling all by itself. She smokes a little bit. It's running a little rough because I got the choke partially pulled out because I'm not in there to hold the gas pedal and give her a couple revs. But I mean, the thing's pretty neat now. I'm not going to do anything with this Jeep. I'm just going to simply pass it along to the World War II community. I just thought, you know, I had to go rescue this thing, had to make a video of it, because how many more opportunities are there to capture, you know, a piece of cultural history like this thing? Yeah, she's a little ugly, but I almost guarantee that someone's going to take this thing and really going to be able to restore it. There's a lot of valuable parts here, and the majority of the heart of the Jeep is still here.